through Fox News and let the independents who are tuning into you, let them know what it is that she stands for, the principles behind her positions.
It used to be that new candidates were advised to brush up on the issues so they could handle questions from anyone, even tough questions. The idea behind that was that it prepared you also for actually governing. But now the advice to candidates is only to talk to sympathetic reporters.
We need to start now by electing strong leaders who aren't afraid to shake it up. We need strong, principled leaders, public servants who respect our Constitution.
We need clarity. We deserve answers, so we don't ask the same questions tomorrow.
Good night, Lon.
We begin tonight with what they said could never be done. They said that wedge issues only wedge one way. If you are a Democratic politician, if you've got a culture warrior opponent, you essentially just have to take it. They can win points with their base for being super anti-abortion, super anti-gay, and all the rest, but there's no way that you as a liberal, you as a Democrat, can raise those issues from the other side. Sorry, you just can't do it. Don't bother. You can campaign against reproductive rights. Republicans have made an art form out of that in recent years, but you can't campaign for reproductive rights. That just can't be done. This is how the culture war has settled out over the past decade or so. You can campaign all you want against all sorts of civil libertarian issues. You can campaign against gay people. You can campaign against religious freedom for anyone who's not your particular brand of Christian. You can campaign against reproductive rights. But you can't campaign for these things. That's the common wisdom. They say it couldn't be done. They are wrong. If you are a Democrat, you can, in fact, hit your opponent for being an extremist on those issues. In fact, you can nail them to the wall for that.
As a doctor, I try to protect the health of women. That's what I do. That's why I'm very disturbed by Ken Buck. Ken Buck would ban common forms of birth control. And Ken Buck wants to make abortion illegal, even in cases of rape and incest. But that should be a woman's decision, not a politician's. As far as I'm concerned, Ken Buck is just too extreme for Colorado.
Too extreme for Colorado. That is an ad being run right now by Democratic Senator Michael Bennet of Colorado. His opponent, Ken Buck, is one of at least 5 Republican Senate candidates that we know of who want the government to make abortion illegal, even in cases where a woman is pregnant as the result of rape or incest. The federal government should monitor every pregnancy of every American woman everywhere in the country to ensure that it ends the way the federal government prefers, no matter what the woman herself or her doctor thinks is best. Even if she is raped, Ken Buck wants the federal government to force the rape victim to bear the child of the rapist. Memo to Democrats: if your opponent has views that extreme, throw out the conventional wisdom. You can run against someone on that basis. They say it couldn't be done. It can be done.
Ken Buck wants to make common forms of birth control illegal.
It's just ridiculous. I can't believe in 2010 Ken Buck wants to limit women's access to birth control.
Ken Buck also wants to make a common fertility treatment illegal.
This is reaching so far into people's private lives.
Who is he to make that choice?
Ken Buck does not belong in my family planning. Women's rights should not be taken backwards.
The Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee is responsible for the content of this advertising.
They said it couldn't be done. It can be done. Democrats, take note. Republican Senate candidate Sharon Angle of Nevada, also a member of the Government Should Force Women to Bear Their Rapists' Babies caucus. Here's her opponent, Democrat Harry Reid, running against Sharon Angle on that exact issue.
What do you call a candidate who says the way things are going, the time may be coming for Second Amendment remedies, an armed response to our government? Who says a teenage rape victim should be forced to have the baby? What do you call that candidate? Extreme. Sharon Angle. Just too extreme.
There's one other that I want you to see here. One other of these ads. It is from the great state of Illinois. This is Democrat Dan Seals going after his Republican opponent, Robert Dold, on essentially the same issue. Check this one out.
So who's for Dan Seals? The Sun-Times says Seals has a strong business and policy background. Newspapers call him independent, impressive. Seals understands what small businesses need to grow and create jobs. And who's behind Robert Dold? Dold was recommended by Illinois Federation for Right to Life, a group that opposes abortion even in cases of rape and incest. And the Tea Party, Dold called them great. So that's who's behind Robert Dold. Who are you behind? The Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Here's the most politically salient thing about that specific ad and what that example means for Democrats running in this year's elections. The Republican candidate who gets hit in that ad, Robert Dold, does not actually have a virulently anti-choice record that Dan Seals is hitting him on. They're hitting him on the fact that he's been endorsed by a very anti-abortion organization. He's not even an anti-abortion candidate, but this Democrat in this race is trying to make him pay a price for being associated with a super anti-abortion group. Now, that's the sort of thing that Republicans do to Democrats all the time, and which Democrats could have been doing to Republicans all this time, but in most cases they wouldn't because they were too skittish about abortion being the basis for doing that on this sort of an issue. But here's Dan Seals showing how it's done, making his Republican opponent pay a price for the right's extremism this year, bringing the national dynamic of the Republican Party and the right going very far right this year, bringing that national dynamic home to an individual race and making a Republican answer for it who really doesn't want to have to answer for it. They say that wedge issues can only go in one direction, that they only work for conservatives. They are wrong. They can go in both directions if Democrats are willing to do it. The current crop of Republican congressional candidates are so extreme on even just this one issue of abortion that Democrats really can feel free to run on abortion rights if they want to, coast to coast. And no, maybe it's not wise to do that everywhere in every district. But in a year when the Republicans are more extreme than they have ever been on that issue, those ads that we just showed, that's what it looks like to hit Republicans in a place where they are a soft target. That's what it looks like to use the culture war issue against Republicans, to use their own extremism nationally against them locally.
The Tea Party American movement is going to grow. On November 3rd, November 2nd isn't the end of this. It's the beginning of this, the reawakening of America and understanding what our foundation is and how America was built and how it became prosperous and generous and safe. And now we need to build upon that.
Suppose Senator John Doe puts forth a constitutional amendment that would outlaw abortion, even in cases of rape or incest, and he asked you to attend the announcement and support him in that. Would you do it?
I would. Yes, a proposal like that, I would stand by it.
Let's be completely clear about the facts here. There is no place in the world and no time in history where restricting women's reproductive rights makes a people or a nation more free or more equal. These extreme positions on abortion are, without any question, a war on American girls and women, and the fact that there are women who are both complicit and participatory in it is really neither surprising nor unprecedented. It has always been true, and it is incredibly important that we recognize that despite the fact that we can be very proud of these women and as politicians, that the question is, how do women as citizens fare on the other side of them either being elected or not elected?